Bună ziua, prieteni, civice, dragi membri ai comunității Agora. Suntem la un nou podcast un nou episod al podcastului Prepare for Future. Suntem aici. Mulțumim în primul rând partenerilor noștri comerciali Premier Energy pentru faptul că ne susțin în această vară. Am alături de mine un om fenomenal cu care o să vorbesc în engleză despre parcursul unei inovații, a unui startup și, desigur, prezența sa la Moldova Digital Summit. Hi, Rick.
Hey.
Really glad that you could find time to do the podcast with me. I know if I tell everyone that you're just a Fortune 500 exec, that says everything about you, right?
Yeah.
But actually, you had a speech yesterday at the Moldova Innovation Awards where you entertained the people and you uncovered somehow the idea of, look, Silicon Valley is dying and it's not really dying.
Yeah.
What's about it? What's about
That's funny. Well, it's pretty topical because what you read in the news about Silicon Valley is, oh my God, Silicon Valley's dead. Look at Facebook, it's going through all these layoffs and San Francisco is empty, and there's this big thing now. The new term is doom cycle, which I love it. Which means basically it's so bad that the news is starting
The world
to
is
spread
ending.
how bad it is, and so it's only going down instead of going up. And so why go to Silicon Valley? It used to be the center of innovation, and now, oh my God, you should go to Austin, Texas, or London, or Berlin, or something like that. And so my story basically was, this has happened before. This same cycle happens approximately every 8 years, like clockwork. And so I went through the whole liturgy.
So you have like a calendar alert? 8 years have passed.
It's pretty funny because around, we had the 2008 financial crisis. Around 2016, I'm basically thinking, it's time. Okay, we're ready. And there was a little blip with the Chinese currency, and then there was overvaluation with Uber and stuff like that. I go, that's not a
And crypto went
blip.
kind of like this, 2017.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there was that. And now we're, from that, we're year 8 again. And so sure enough, we're dying. We're dead.
AI is going to fire all of us, right?
Yeah. And so my story basically is this cycle happens because companies grow so quickly and there's just such heightened expectations about performance with all these brand new Silicon Valley giants that somebody has to knock them off the top of the hill, which is fine. So there's usually some trigger event that occurs. In this case, it was COVID, and then the infrastructure plan and just stuff that was going on, churn in the waters. And the infrastructure plan actually made it more exacerbated because it threw money into the economy. And so instead of a natural down cycle, we actually had sort of a mixed up cycle. So there was overinvestment in a lot of startups that should have died and didn't. And so now they're dying twice as fast. And so that just looks ugly on paper. But that's okay.
So that's what makes everyone say Silicon Valley is dying.
Yeah, because this one's a little bit worse than some of the others. Statistically, but that's okay. So what ends up happening is the cycle grows anew. It's like, you go out, you've been through winter and what spring looked like. And so what happens in the natural cycle is, let's say you have layoffs at Facebook or something like that. Where do those people go? One of two things. Some of them move, goodbye, that you didn't necessarily want to live the entrepreneurial life cycle, go back home, whatever. That's natural. But the majority of people stay. And what do? You go into the next brand new startup, the next generation of technology that's emerging. And then you see those early stage companies start to develop into the next wave of giants.
The next Facebook, the next Google. Yeah?
Exactly. And so what I did last night is I recounted history. So I went through the early 1980s, the early 1990s, the 2000 downturn, 2008, 2016. I talked about which giants emerged from each one of those sort of downturn/recessions.
Speaking of giants, we kind of have Sam Altman go everywhere right now. He's become some sort of Steve Jobs now with OpenAI.
Yeah.
And wherever he goes, to each government, you have the prime minister there meeting him. It's a little weird, don't you think?
Oh, it's his point in time.
It's a guy that has a company appeared 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And now he's meeting all these leaders around the world, and they're asking him, so are we in danger? What's your AI going to do to us?
Well, a lot of quote unquote leaders don't put up with that. They're busy running their companies, but I think he enjoys the limelight. And he's also very well spoken. And prior to that, it wasn't just OpenAI. I mean, he was the president of Y Combinator, probably the number one accelerator in the world, and had great success there. So he has street cred. You know, he can show up on the scene and do well. So yeah, he's a spokesman right now of the time, and you know, like every wave, there'll be another one in 8 years.
So we spoke about the giants, but let's go back to a founding of a startup.
Sure.
So a lot of people nowadays have ideas, right? Even if you don't have ideas, you can ask ChatGPT and he'll give you ideas.
Yeah.
Once you have that idea, you actually get to a point where you ask yourself, okay, where do I get money for this? So I think you are the right person to talk about where do you get equity as a startup in order to make your idea happen.
Okay, so in order to make your idea happen and grow, you usually need some sort of funding. A lot of people will self-fund early on, especially those people at Facebook that had $400,000 salaries that can afford to take a year off and do that. So you'll self-fund for a while. You'll do what's called problem solution fit. You'll validate the fact that this idea that you have actually might be interesting to real customers. Build out your prototypes, get some early traction, and so on. And then once you start to see some scalable, repeatable sales process, then you're probably ready for some larger funding to sort of get going.
But if you don't mind me interrupting, when that process of sales, it might happen a year or two down the road.
That's right.
It takes time.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways to get funded before then. And so self-funding is one. We don't have a grant system like you do in Europe. So you basically either self-fund, you might get some angel investment, you might have a rich uncle.
There's a lot of them in Europe.
Yeah, it's true.
But seeing...
And so you have to sort of struggle. And this is good. Struggling, that's why grants are sometimes, you know, a double-edged sword. But you struggle as a startup. You actually have to milk every single sort of nickel as you're going through and make sure that you're being efficient with your time, your energy, your direction, so on. You don't hire too quickly. You really try to make sure that you have that right product for the market at this point in time.
That's kind of the formula of success for the US companies. Even the US as a state, they had a big struggle. Look, we have this big problem. We have to fix it because no one's going to help us.
Right.
And opposing to that, grants in Europe is like, okay, here's some money. It's not a lot. You can do with it pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you fail, it's fine. But it shouldn't be like that. We need to find some sort of balance, right?
Right.
Between a rich uncle and fighting for your life.
I don't think our system should change. I don't think there's any need for additional grant money or anything along those lines. It's working. It's working. And personal opinion, what it's worth, I think Europe should start to adopt that kind of a system. One thing that's interesting that I've seen, a model that I really like, is the Ukrainian Startup Fund.
Okay, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it's been around for about 3 years. It is a system where you can apply for let's say you're a startup. You had an outsourcing company, you have an idea for a product. You need a little bit of money to go off and validate. So you can apply for a grant, it's $25,000. That's all you get. And then you take that money, which is not a lot, but in Ukraine it can stretch pretty far.
Yeah.
And you're able to go there, you know, to basically show some early traction, some ideas, maybe get some sales.
Alpha IT version of it, yeah?
Yeah, a little farther along probably. And then if you're looking really successful, you can apply for a second round, which is $50,000. Now that's 1/10 of what you get in Europe as grant money. So it's small, it's enough to kind of get you going. So I actually believe Moldova should set up a system like that of small, efficient, easy grants that would allow.
That's government money? Is that it?
It's government money.
Okay.
So it's founded by the Ministry of Digital Transformation there. And you know, there's a private board, there's people from private industry that help sort of shape that.
And if they like the idea, they can fund more, right? It's like a Shark Tank, no?
Not exactly. Anyway, going back to sort of the US system and how it works. So you struggle a little bit and then you're eligible initially probably for angel financing, and we have a really strong network of angel investors. For those that don't know what an angel is, it's basically an individual who's done well and has some means and is able to, you know...
Take risks?
Take risks, yeah. They're called accredited investors. You have to be in order to do that. So it's a minimum income of $200,000 and or $1 million in net worth. which is not that high a bar in the US. And so you're eligible to invest in unregulated securities, like a startup.
In your experience, how often do you deal with this? Like people approaching you, and I mean, it's probably a lot, but how do you filter through that? That was my question. How do you filter through that?
Oh, the ones that me personally I'm excited about? I actually was a member of Sand Hill Angels for 10 years and they kind of did this as a hobby, and it was super, which is basically what you do. That's an angel investor. It's not a professional investor. You do it for fun. And it's social, and you meet with other people as part of a group and so on. So
and you can see them grow right into these big companies.
And what you do is you get good deal flow from your buddies, and you do due diligence together, and you invest, and then often contribute a little bit of time and mentorship and stuff like that. So the angel kind of stage is the next thing after you struggle and you get going. And so then you start to see maybe a bit more traction, it's a little more exciting, and then at that point in time, a professional investor like a VC could and should get involved.
Because you already have the numbers, you have the development plans, you have the problems you've encountered around the road and how you solve them.
Yeah.
Because a regular investor would not talk to you until you have all that, right?
That's right, yeah. So an angel investor will invest with their heart and their head. So they do it because they like the founders and they believe in the mission and so on. And then they might be able to make some money too. So both of those are a strong combination. VCs, not so much. VCs, you are a professional investor. You've raised money through limited partners. It's somebody else's money. You are a fund manager. You're responsible for making returns. And so you are strictly focused.
You can't lose.
They do lose because it's high risk, but that's your attitude, is you can't lose. You have to go off and do a lot of due diligence, and many of them take an active role on a board or something and manage the company after the investment. And so, yeah, that's and it's great. So you get a strong VC with good industry experience, a good network and a track record, and it really helps you take the company to the next step.
What would be your advice to someone that has to prepare for a VC meeting? Like what are maybe, I guess, top 3 mistakes or top 3 things you should do when you go to talk to them?
First off, don't fall in love with your product, fall in love with the business. Be a business person. They're there for returns. They don't care that you're...
Why are you changing? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, number 2, study the VC. Take a look. They all post something called an investment thesis on their websites. We invest in the following things for the following reasons. Take a look at that. Either reject it, don't even take a meeting with somebody that doesn't fit. Why are you meeting with a biotech person when you're an AI startup or something like that, and vice versa. So really align yourself with their needs, get some references, be prepared, personalize it, I think is one of the things. Most people just simply pitch. I'm going to line up and I'm going to do 100 VC meetings and just sort of do a shotgun approach. No.
That doesn't work?
No. Also, along the lines of, they're making an investment in you. A typical partner might only make, 10 to 20 investments over the course of their lifetime in the fund. And so each one of those companies they're going to care for, you're getting married. They're going to be with you and hounding you to perform and try to drive towards an exit. By the way, when you take VC money, it's like being handed a ticking time bomb.
Is there an alternative to VC?
Sure, lots of them. Profits.
Make money.
Make money. And then you don't need an outside investment. So with VC, what you're doing is you're selling a part of your company. You're spinning off equity. You're taking, and this is a US corporate thing, which is now found traction in Europe. You have shares in your company, you're selling a chunk of shares to someone else in exchange for the hope that those shares will increase in value, and then they and you participate in that growth overall.
But some people lose their company along the way, right?
Oh,
they issue so many shares, they eventually can't buy them. And then once you don't really own your company anymore, if you're not really invested, like you said, in the business part of it, you can be like, whatever, I don't care about it. It's not my company anymore.
No, that doesn't happen.
No?
No, it's your company. You spent really months and years trying to build it out. And you're not all of a sudden, because you took investment and your percentage ownership drops, as it should. It's called dilution. You're still going to probably work as hard as ever. But the venture capitalists, the way they make money is through an exit. Those shares, which are illiquid when they buy them, need to become liquid somehow, need to be sold in a marketplace so that the venture capitalists can recoup the funds that they've made along with the value creation that's been done. So what's an exit? It means that either a sale of the company, some sort of a merger with somebody that's a liquid entity,
IPO.
or an IPO, which is hard to do, but those are the
And those are risky too. There's multiple instances when people were launching the IPO just so they can immediately share, and then the company goes, "Uh-oh, we don't have anything. The value is gone."
Or we miss the market window,
Yeah.
which happens a lot. And so the market for either IPOs or even exit, even mergers and acquisitions comes and goes. So example being, remember we're in a doom loop. Oh my God. So it's hard to find an exit right now.
What about, see, in the US, you have all these different steps, all these different opportunities, because the market really is not, like, it's open. You can go do whatever you want. The government kind of lets you do it, right?
Yeah, that's one of the benefits that entrepreneurship is sort of an open playing field and the government doesn't interfere.
But here, it's a lot more conservative. You don't really have, in Moldova, like, you have a stock market, but it's not, you don't buy Apple shares here. You buy company shares from companies that do oil somewhere in the north. Like, it's hard to do an IPO, right?
Okay.
It's hard to get VCs because there's not billionaires walking around just going like, "Hey, let me see what you got there." So for a startup in a more, let's say in a developing country, right? Mm-hmm. What would be your approach to getting more funding? Still go over the ocean and get it there?
Or go over the channel to Europe or to London, excuse me, or there are other places within Europe. I mean, Paris and Berlin are still sort of hot areas. So you don't necessarily. That's a complicated question. The structure of a lot of companies. This is what's happening right now with Moldovan startups. Is their headquarters is somewhere else. So that's the legal headquarters. And so they typically will be. I mean, so we had the Moldova Innovation Awards last night, and we had one company whose headquarters was in London, another company whose headquarters was literally within walking distance of my house.
For this specific reason?
Yes.
The limits in here.
That's right, yeah. And so the structure of company ownership within most of the ex-Soviet republics, because of the way the legal systems are set up, is percentage ownership. People own a percentage. But there's no there's no shares that are then divided up, which can be sold to other entities in a way that then you can take those shares and put them on the public markets as an exit. So what you end up doing is you incorporate in a place that has those share structures, and then investors understand what that is, and as they try to drive towards some form of an exit. So you really do, unfortunately, you do need to incorporate somewhere else. So often what happens is you have this split corporate structure. So you have headquarters located in X, and then you have your operations here. People are being paid here, and it can be 90% of the company here. That's
and
totally
they have
fine.
the tax incentives from MITP for that.
Yeah, and the lower salary rates, and the people that are motivated. You all speak the same language, have the same culture, understand each other. Great working teams, good engineers, all that kind of stuff. You get all the benefits of this split ownership, and that's frankly been happening for the last 20 years. This sort of, Silicon Valley is expensive. You're not going to move all your team there. It's
you
better.
Can't afford it.
You can't afford it. You can't. Actually, it's true.
Every time I think of Silicon Valley, I remember that one house that they sold to like Facebook or Apple for millions of dollars because they needed that house to build their campus.
Yeah.
So that person didn't have to do a startup. They made millions of dollars by just living where they live. That said everything to me about Silicon Valley.
Oh, really? Okay. Zuckerberg's neighbors did pretty well without really having to do a whole lot.
But for a startup, for any person doing a startup, in order to know all this, obviously they need a lot of education, because you kind of dive into the ocean and there's so many things you need to know. So many books you have to read, so many trainings and TED speeches and all of that they have to listen to in order to develop. I know you're here not just for the summit or for Innovation Awards, you're also here to help people understand and educate them at the university. Tell me more about that.
Oh, I'd love to. So I'm here on sponsorship from USAID and Commodix and some others, also the Swedish government. And Probably 3 years ago, we had a delegation come out from Moldova taking a look at, I teach at UC Berkeley, coming out and just talking about what sort of potential partnerships could exist between a leading university in the US and the Moldovan universities here. And that's now starting to take some shape, and I'm super happy to say that I'm here to work with both Moldova Technical University and the State University as well to discuss how to put entrepreneurial programs and classes.
So it's not for students, it's for the universities themselves?
No, it's for students. Somebody has to teach it, so we're working with faculty to actually design courses then students will come out and take those classes. We're doing that on a number of different fronts. First, we're kind of doing something easy. Let me back up a little bit and talk about entrepreneurial teaching, what you do. So you said, like, there's so much you need to learn, and that's all this stuff, and how do you do problem validation, and how do you figure out go-to-market strategies, and how do you figure out what your funding looks like, and how do you do financials, and oh my God. So
you lost me at the first word.
I doubt that. But what we do is we use experiential learning. So it's not classroom lectures or anything like that. It is, we teach by having students build startups from scratch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So non-formal and formal education meet together.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so so the method, I call it the journey. So students at the beginning of whatever course they're taking come in and we say, okay, come up with an idea, come up with a problem you believe that needs solving, find an unmet need out there in the marketplace. And then we'll teach you the methodology about how to take that and go through problem validation, develop a proper solution, take that, develop a go-to-market strategy, figure out all your financials, and then we're going to pitch that in front of potential investors.
That's so great.
It's cool.
I wish I had that when I was that young, because we were basically doing dictation, right?
Yeah.
The teacher would come in and say, hey, my name is, I'm going to dictate to you for an hour and a half. Good luck with your studies from now on.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I want to do a startup, but I have no idea how to do it.
So we basically teach, we do that. We have to give some lecture material
obviously,
on the basics. Yeah. But basically, as they're going through the journey, they stop and say, okay, I had this hypothesis about a problem that I believe needs solving. I conducted these experiments. I went out and interviewed some customers. And then sure enough, the evidence is coming back and it looks positive. We have them stop, give a full presentation on exactly what they've done, and I call it a gate, where you either move forward or not based on the validity of how well you perform that experiment.
So you basically, at the same time as teaching them the technicalities of it and the right path to do something,
yeah,
you're also growing leaders. Right?
Yeah, and they form teams and they don't know each other, and so they struggle as teams and they fight and stuff like that. It's really fun to watch and manage.
But I know UC Berkeley has also been helpful to Moldova with their product management course.
Yeah.
That was also really exciting.
They do a really good job at product management, and it's my colleagues that have done a lot of that work.
Okay, well.
So just to, and I'll wrap up the quick story. So this journey, basically, we go all the way through. So I'm here next week to actually teach a 1-week version of this journey to students from both universities. So
no pressure.
Well, it's fun. We actually play games all the way through because we try to change their mindset and be more open to ideas and thoughts. And so, yeah, we're going to have 70 students, 14 companies. We're going to start from scratch. And over the course of a week, we're going to build them out and have them present. And the Deputy Prime Minister is one of our judges. So it's super cool. So just to stop and then say, so this same journey can be a semester-long class. The same journey can then result in maybe an incubator for those ideas where somebody wants to take it up the next step and some mentorship involved and so on. So these kinds of things now, boot camps, courses, incubators and accelerators, all of that are the things that we would like to sort of have the universities understand and then put in place, according to their student body and the needs.
From my observations, the younger generation is even better at all that because you have all these 15, 16-year-olds that have startups already.
Yeah.
And the pace they're developing at is incredible. So speculating also, what do you think schools should do because schools are even more rigid than the universities, right? Especially here in Moldova, the government thinks that you need to study 15 subjects ranging from physics to Romanian literature. We don't get to choose like in the US until 10th grade.
Yeah.
And it's just a direction basically. What do you think a school, or not, in this case, the government itself, the education ministry, should do in order to give a nudge to the kids that have bright ideas to encourage them to do even more? Because they come out, in my experience, very frustrated from school. Like, I didn't learn anything I wanted there.
Good question. I think this week I'm here to really work with the universities as a first step. I've heard this. I heard it quite a lot over the last couple of days in terms of, no, this actually should be pushed down into the schools themselves. Now I'm hearing that as an issue, and let's start to think about it and exactly what's going on. There's no reason it can't be. There's nothing really magic about what I'm saying. There's nothing technical about what's going on. A lot of the teaching is just simply common sense and a methodology. It can easily go into sort of high school level education. And in the US, that's pretty common.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. I had a really great conversation with you. We are really happy that people such as yourself and a lot of other people that were invited to Moldova Digital Summit are here to share their experience, share their knowledge, and not only that, but I appreciate that no one's looking down at us, you know?
No.
Most of the people I spoke to, they're like, I did not expect this. You guys are great. I spoke to the country manager for Romania and Moldova at Microsoft. He said, look, in Moldova, you have so many digitized services. In Romania, we build more offices for you to go to and get paperwork instead of digitizing the services. And when you hear the country manager from Microsoft say that, you're like, it's not that bad, I would say. You know?
Right. There's a lot here. It's really fun. And the thing I really enjoy is the culture as well, because people are open and willing to learn and excited about what's coming next. So I'm happy to be part of it.
Yep. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.